I'm blessed with this curse. I can't call it a talent because it is not helpful, and it's not a godsend because it's a nuisance. These pieces of music pop into my head like musical premonitions. They're not earworms, a phenomenon I don't really suffer from, but totally unexpected, and they drown out everything else to the point that it feels like my head is going to explode. Sometimes these sonic warnings precede a major event, but most of the time it's just noise. Such as a time when I was 19 and Green Day's American Idiot popped into my head in the middle of Grafton Street in Dublin city centre. 10 seconds later, a literal American Idiot ran smack bang into me, coming round a corner, and didn't even apologise. I don't have a problem with Americans, but I had a problem with that particular specimen. When I was 16 and my mother died, I was busy listening to Blues All Rise album on full blast in my best friend Lizzie's room, so it's possible that I wouldn't have heard my internal music even if it was there. I didn't know anything was wrong until Lizzie's mother peeked her head around the doorframe with a mournful look on her face and told me she had news for me. My father had called on the landline because I didn't have a mobile phone yet. It came out of the blue, pun intended or unintended, and life was never the same again. Then again, 7 years later, when my friend Lizzie's waters broke, it came as no surprise to me. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star had already started playing in my head several minutes before this happened. In fact, I wonder if my distress at what Lizzie thought of as a debilitating headache caused her to go into labour. She doesn't know about my questionable gift, and neither does anyone else. How do you explain to someone that your brain warns you with a song that something is about to happen, but it might be something of no consequence? I don't know or remember when this started occurring. I can't remember whether I was born with it, whether it was always there, or whether something set it off. What I do remember is when I first experienced it. It was only a few months before the American Idiot incident. It was midsummer, and Lizzie insisted that I should come to a beach party at Augharourke Castle to the north of Dublin and not far from where Lizzie's cousins lived. I didn't want to go because parties were never my scene. Lizzie enjoyed a social life, and I didn't understand why she wanted to be friends with a loser like me. Lizzie was pretty and bubbly, whereas I was bookish and frumpy. Nothing has changed there for either of us, although Lizzie hasn't quite lost that baby weight she gained while expecting Ellen. You have to. I won't let you waste your summer away reading books and playing the violin. You can do that in the winter when the weather's crap. Come on. I eventually relented and let her dress me in a tiered miniskirt and a white tank top with a cropped cardigan over it. She helped with my makeup and hair, and when I looked at myself in a mirror in her cousin's house, where we were getting ready, I was quite pleased with my appearance. Lizzie gave me an appraising look, and we headed to the beach for 6 o'clock. The party had already started. A fire was lit in the sand, safely away from the dunes and the reeds that grew there, but also far enough not to be swallowed up by the waves. Someone had set up a couple of coal barbecues, and sausages and corn were already on the go. They smelled divine. In our rush to get ready, we had forgotten to eat lunch. Britney Spears' Toxic blasted out of the boombox left on one of the logs that worked as seats. I started my way down the dunes to join the crowd, but Lizzie grabbed my arm and pulled me back. Just one thing, she said with a smile, and pulled my glasses off. I watched with blurry eyes as she slid them into the pocket of her denim jacket. Lizzie, what are you doing? You know I can't see without my glasses. I laughed nervously. She had to be joking. I'm serious. No glasses tonight. Tonight's the night, Nessa. Nobody but Lizzie ever calls me Nessa, which is just as well, because I don't like it. Tonight's the night that you're finally going to snog some man. I don't care who it is, just get it out of the way. You look so cute without your glasses, not at all like a 19-year-old librarian. It's gonna happen. You can take your pick. I swallowed and blushed at the same time. I was mortified to admit, even to myself, that I was 19 and had not kissed a boy yet. I wasn't particularly bothered. Real-life boys were not like the guys I fancied, such as Mikey from Boyzone, Nicky from Westlife, or Lee from Blue. They were all pimply and awkward and had no dresses, although I've never been a great judge. Nobody had ever made my heart flutter, and it didn't make sense to snog someone for the sake of it. Lizzie, on the other hand, had set her heart on a boy called Sean, since she was 15. They started sneaking out together when they were 16, and 3 years later they were as steady as any married couple I knew, except disgustingly in love. They were having sex too, which to my young mind felt like an impossible milestone. But I can't see anything, I protested. What good's kissing someone if I don't even know what he looks like? You'll get it out of the way. It's all easier after that, Lizzie said as she pulled me down the dune on unsteady feet. I'm not blind without my glasses, but I can't see anything more than a blur and can't tell facial features if the person is further than an arm's length from me. It's like walking on a dark road when you just see shapes, but with the lights on. I can't do anything without my glasses, and, thanks to Lizzie, I faced an entire evening without my eyesight. Lizzie guided me to a seat and went to fetch us alco pops and sausages. I sat there for ages waiting for her because she knew everyone. I doubted I would have known anyone, but it was hard to tell. Finally, Lizzie handed me a hot dog and put a bottle of WKD in my other hand. I'm gonna see Sean, she said, with a nod, I think, in Sean's direction, that then disappeared. I was all alone with a group of strangers I couldn't even see. It was a long night. After my hot dog and first drink, I hobbled over to get another one. It's not easy to walk when you can't watch where you're going. As the shadows grew long and everyone more inebriated, I found myself staying in one spot, afraid to walk anywhere. I spoke to few people. Some tried to make conversation with me, including a few young men, but their conversational skills didn't impress me, and I couldn't comment on their looks. Eventually, when it must have been past 11 at night, I grew tired of the couple next to me, constantly with their tongues down each other's throats, and their hands all over each other, complete with sound effects that the music from the boombox couldn't drown out. I got up, smoothed my skirt, and walked around the crowd dancing to Peter Andre's Mysterious Girl, which had reappeared the year before. I made my way across the sand slowly, dragging my feet along in case there was something on the ground I couldn't see in the creeping darkness. Deciding I had made my way far enough from the madding crowd, I shuffled closer to the bank. I bent down and felt for a pile of sand under my hand before sitting down. Far as I was, I rearranged the skirt around me. That I couldn't see didn't mean others couldn't, and the beach was swarming with teenage boys and men in their early 20s. I sat and listened. The waves slapped against the shore, and I heard a single seagull in the distance. The sound of laughter still reached my ears, as did music from the party, but it wasn't loud enough for me to recognize the song. It was only a thumping of the bass beat. I longed for a book to read, but I hadn't brought one, as if Lizzie would have allowed me to, and in the dark and without my glasses, I wouldn't have been able to read anyway. My violin I could have done with. I can play with my eyes closed, and in a pitch black if I must, but I like seeing the bow sliding across the strings, literally watching music come to life. None of that was on the cards that night, and experiencing my first kiss was certainly not. I might as well get myself locked up in a nunnery for all the success I was having with the opposite sex. As I sat there daydreaming and wondering how to turn this Midsummer's Eve's soundscape into a piece of music, another unexpected sound pierced the veil of subdued noises. It was almost like electricity, if it had a sound, a sizzle followed by a thud. The sound came from my right, up on the dunes. I looked up and even made the effort to stand up to look around me, but seeing nothing, I sat down again. It had to be something from the party, perhaps even from the castle further up the shore. It might have been fireworks. The occupants of the castle had a party too, although one much more glamorous than what was going on at the beach. I didn't know the people in the castle, and neither did Lizzie, but she knew they had bought the place in recent years and rescued it from certain rooms. I returned to my quiet contemplation, but human voices from the dunes soon interrupted it. It sounded like cursing, certainly unhappy sounds. I hoped that nobody had stolen up there for a quickie. I didn't want to catch anyone in the act, and I also didn't want to be found near the scene. They'd think I was trying to sneak a peek. There was the swooshing of sliding sand on my right, another mutter, and then a figure appeared in front of me. I couldn't see the person's face, but they stopped to take stock of the scene in front of them, their eyes eventually landing on me. I squinted, but it did little good. From the height of the person, I gathered it was a man. He appeared to be wearing dark clothes and having fair hair. "Hi," he said, his eyes still on me. "Hi," I mumbled back, suddenly self-conscious. I knew he was looking at me, but I couldn't read his expression. "Do you belong to that party?" I imagined that he was looking at the gang on the beach. "No," I responded resolutely, because I totally did not belong to that scene. But I was there. "You're pretty far from them. You shouldn't stray too far from the crowd." Is that a warning? Had I met some creep who rightly pointed out that I was alone in the dark? I pulled my skirt further down, as if it will make any difference. I wanted some alone time. "You're not a people person." "I guess not. Do you want to go back? You could introduce me to some of your friends." I hesitated. He was a complete stranger to me, but his voice was pleasant. He spoke in a Dublin accent, but a posh one. Maybe he was one of the rich people from the castle. He might be a lord or an earl or something. "I promise I don't bite. I will have to head back anyway." Lizzie will start to wonder where I got to, although she hadn't much care for my company all night. "Sure." I started getting up, but found my companion gently gripping my hand to help me. His hand wasn't sweaty or slimy or cold, like most blokes of my age. It felt comfortable and large in mine, warm and soft. "Thanks." I hoped that the envelope in darkness covered my blushing as I again straightened my skirt. "You're welcome, Vanessa." Up close as he was, I could see from the way his head was tilted that he had spotted my nameplate necklace, the kind made famous by Carrie on Sex and the City. "Vanessa," he repeated with a hint of surprise in it. I expected him to introduce himself, but he didn't. "I'm sorry, I'm a bit lost," I said as he took a giant stride towards the party, which I couldn't match. He stopped. "My friend took my glasses earlier. I can barely see a thing." "Isn't that a bit cruel?" the young man asked, as he took a step back towards me. "He wanted me to look pretty," I admitted, and immediately regretted it. "And you do." I could hear the smile in his voice. Was he flirting with me? "Shall we?" he asked, and guided my hand through the crook of his arm. We set off slowly across the sand. "So, are you from the castle?" I asked to kill the silence. "Yeah, just came from there. It's nice." I had admired it all evening, the red stone, the turret, and the towers. Not having a clue of history, I didn't know what era it was, but I knew it was a stunner. How's the party up there? Party? I don't know about that. I frowned. The party at the castle might be a bit boring for a young man if everybody else was older, but surely he was still part of it. I was about to ask, but we got close enough for a person with regular vision to be able to take everything in. "This looks like a party," my escort said, impressed by the crowd around the fire. I thought some of the crowd had already dispersed, some to engage in unspeakable acts so unfamiliar to me. "Yeah, it's fun." We kept going. I had a feeling that a few heads turned to look at us as we passed. Walking with the man other than my father was a new experience to me. "Here, do you want to sit down?" He released my arm and gently guided me towards one of the log benches, but I didn't sit down yet. "Whoa, this is old school." I saw him looking over my shoulder, easily achieved because he was a head taller than I was, in the direction of the source of music. The Killers were singing Mr. Brightside. "No Bluetooth in sight." "No what?" I asked, hoping I was still holding on to this man. I liked being near him. I felt safe and respected. His voice was young, and I didn't think he was much older than I was, but there was something about him that made him feel more mature. A boombox? I didn't know they still existed. Except that he talked a lot of nonsense. And a pile of CDs? Is this some sort of retro party? I blinked up at him. It didn't improve my eyesight, but it helped clear my muddy thoughts. My new conclusion was the same as my previous one. This gentleman was extremely confused. Hot Fuzz only came out last year. Last year? It's a classic. Well, yeah, I was quick to agree, wanting to please him. It's an instant classic. I could see him shaking his head like a wet dog. "I have it right here." He pulled something out of his pocket. It was a black slab, but I couldn't make it out. I squinted. "Oh yeah, I forgot about your glasses. Sorry, on my phone." He waved the object in his hand. "What?" I was delighted to have McFly's 5 Colours in Her Hair as my ringtone, but it was part of a single song, not an album. You can't have an album on your phone. Of course you can. I have hundreds. You're being silly. He had spent 5 minutes with me and he had already gone off me. I could feel him tensing. You don't have a smartphone. I made a sound of agreement, although I didn't know what he was talking about. I have to go. There was an urgency to his voice that I didn't understand. Already? Back to your own party up at the castle? Yes, back to the party. His mind was clearly elsewhere, while his body remained with me. I gripped his sleeve. It was fake leather. So cool. Here was a young man worthy of my affections. Are you coming back? He looked down at me. I imagined by his actions that his heart melted and his face softened. It was probably wishful thinking, but he put his hands on my shoulders. I will be back to you, Vanessa. The way he said my name sounded thoughtful, like he wanted to hear the sound of it, like it was a bigger deal than it should have been. Then, to my surprise, he bent down and planted his lips on mine. They were warm and tasted of salty sea air. His hair brushed my cheek, but then, all too soon, his lips left mine, and he removed his hands from my shoulders. The world suddenly felt cold without his body near mine. Then he walked away in the direction of the sand dunes that will take him back to his castle. That's when it happened. My head filled with the slow tune of Will Young's Leave Right Now, but behind it, distantly, like under the sea, the Killers were singing about smiling like you meant it. I didn't feel like smiling, particularly not with the sadness of Will's vocal inside my head. I thought I was going to burst. My head was splitting. Was this what it felt like to fall in love? I felt someone near me, but I couldn't focus. There was a gentle touch on my arm. Someone was talking to me, but the song in my head drowned everything else out. Then I felt the loop of my glasses sliding first behind my left and then behind my right ear, and everything fell into focus again. I looked to my left and saw Lizzie. She was beaming at me. You sure don't do things by half measures. He's gorgeous. She almost whispered the last word, as if it was a secret. Is he? I don't know. I couldn't tell. Hell yeah, was that the first time you kissed, right here? She pointed at the ground beneath my feet. I could see footsteps in the sand, much bigger than mine. I followed the trail with my eyes. It disappeared out of view some meters away, where the flames of the fire didn't cast their light. Yes. Well, that was public. Everyone was looking at you. Well done, girl. Lizzie wrapped her arms around me for a quick hug before pulling back again. Who is he? I don't know. I realized that I had never got his name. He had talked a lot of nonsense, but not about himself. Whoa, girl, a mystery man, too. Is he coming back? I suddenly felt nervous. He said he would. Good, I'd love to meet him. Don't worry, he's all yours. I don't want to swap Sean just yet. Come on, let's get you a drink. I waited hours for my mystery man to return. I didn't want my first kiss to be only a kiss. I wanted it to be more, to see where it would lead. As midnight crawled past, and the hours crept by, into the deep dark of the night, and then again into the early morning, the party died down. People departed. The fire, left unattended, eventually faded into embers until someone kicked sand over it to smother the last of the sparks, and my hopes along with it. As Lizzie dragged me up the dunes, and I looked at the castle on the hill, I saw all the lights had come out in their windows. Tears blurred my vision. I didn't see him again. I didn't know where to look. I had no name, and no face to look for. My first kiss remained only a kiss, but that night left another lasting memory. After that, my musical warnings became an increasingly frequent part of my life.